Hello and welcome to Oxygen Not Included. Today we're going to be doing something a bit different here. I am going to be watching myself play because I recorded a couple of hours of footage and figure I'm just going to do a little bit of a voiceover here as we skip along and see what's going on. So, looks like here we are just kind of starting out getting our familiarity with the base back in, and determining what our plan of attack is. Now, my big plan for this particular night of work was to do some more exploration. And in order to do that, I wanted to dig upwards, which is what I believe I'm starting here. It's just like getting myself into a position where I can actually start experimenting and exploring as we go further up and down. The next thing after this that I do, I believe, is I start the coal generator station, which I actually get finished by the time that this episode is over. And here you see, I just remembered there is a trick to digging, except that I'm doing it wrong. If you do a stack of 3 and then skip to the side and do another stack of 3, leaving yourself a 1-block gap like that, you can actually get your duplicants to dig upwards quicker and ascend faster than by a single ladder. It's an extremely useful little trick that I learned recently. Highly recommend it to everyone. So what I did just there was I was opening up to get those arbor acorns because I want to get some trees growing as soon as I get the temperature raised in my base a bit. Now getting the temperature raised high enough for arbor trees is actually going to be a bit of a tricky trouble because of how much effort it takes. It's like 30 degrees, I think, or no, not 30. It's like I stopped growing at 10 degrees Celsius and my base is basically at 1 degree Celsius where they're going to be growing. I also start to think, wait a second, duplicants can produce polluted water, and they produce it at a higher temperature than ambient, because they have a body temperature. So if I start collecting all of the polluted water from my dupes, then I will begin to create a body of higher concentrated heat, essentially, and I'll start warming the base. And since we're in a frozen biome, I figured that would probably be a good idea. This is also a day of reckoning for all of my wiring. I also go ahead and start putting in a whole bunch of conductive wires, getting rid of the little base wire, because I need there to be more, I need there to be 2 kilowatts of overhead rather than 400 watts or whatever that the normal wire can take. So that's really useful. That ends up happening. Also, I start by reforming all of the duplicant living quarters. And we actually expand the amount of duplicants we have living quite a lot in this episode. Which may come back to bite us in the ass because we may end up running out of food. But I don't think so, because a tricky little technique we'll get to later. I'm having trouble there, but I'm working on getting, as you can see there, I'm working on getting the polluted water and water piped up, which will begin to work that new system I have designed in my head for helping to heat the base. And I think from here we're going to go ahead and skip forward a bit, and we will come back when there's a bit more progress. All right, and you can see here on the bottom of the screen, I finally got that coal generation plant up and running fully. We're looking at 4 coal power plants hooked up to automation to a smart battery, and the smart battery banks are then connected to a transformer, a pair of transformers, each running at 1 kilowatt, so there is a maximum possible drain on the power grid of 2 kilowatts, preventing possible overcharge, which is something I deeply wanted to keep out. I did not want to have to keep repairing and repairing and repairing wires as they burn out, and if you have a sharp eye throughout this whole episode, you might notice me being very angry about keeping the repairs going. Also, you can see that we have a couple of metal tiles there next to the transformers. This is to help leach heat out of the generator room and into the base at large, paired with the large wall of insulation that I am currently building around the entire base. This is to help regulate our temperature and at least give us a fighting chance of warming the whole base up to a somewhat livable temperature without having to, resort to silly means like running hot water tubes through the entire facility, as it were. Now, I don't think I've done it yet, but we did find a neural vacillator off to the side. And that neural vacillator, I'm going to throw Bubbles in. And Bubbles is our... it's going to be our mechatronics engineer, because Bubbles is the one that's closest to doing that. If you are unfamiliar with mechatronic engineering, it is what allows you to build the automated shipping and such. You notice there was a couple of blueprints down there. You can see the ghost figures next to the coal generator. That is due entirely to there not being someone who can make mechatronics engineering. So all that coal I have stored in those lockers down there, they can't do anything yet. Duplicates still have to go down there to refill the generators. Also, you can see one of the only pieces of modded tech I'm using at the moment, which is the airlock. I like the ability to have a perfect airlock without having to do any of the silly liquid lock nonsense. Oh, here we are. I'm about to throw Bubbles in the neural vacillator. And, yeah, I think Bubbles gets a meat bonus or something. They get muscles on their muscles and they get much stronger. So that's good fun. Also, we are now on cycle 70. And you can see we're doing pretty good. We have, I think it's 6 duplicants at the moment and 0% stress. So I call this a win so far. However, we are still dealing with liquid chlorine next to the base and negative 30 or 40 degrees Celsius temperatures everywhere. I'm not sure I've noticed it yet, but that little cave that I dug out earlier for the arbor acorns, turns out that there's a volcano in there, and it turns out it's a gold volcano. You can see here I missed a couple of things, so I'm going to put wires. Now, I did mess that up. I put heavy watt wires when I should have only put conductive wires. So even though I tell them to go do this at high priority, it turns out it never actually gets done. And that's on me. It was just a misclick. I do fix it later on in case we don't actively see it. You can see me here, once again, going after all of those little nitpicky wires that just didn't want to get changed when I changed the original wiring setup for the base. I'm not mad. No, that's not me. You can also see here that I have set up a gas crusher. I have it set on a pretty low cycle rate because, honestly, the coal power plants aren't generating that much carbon dioxide yet because we're not using that much power. Even when I'm running the liquid teporizer, and even when I'm making the liquid tepid with that heater in the bottom of the main pool, it's honestly not that big a deal. Like, it just doesn't matter. It's just not enough power being used at the moment. Looks like I haven't gotten around to completing the duplicant housing yet. But eventually everybody gets a shower, a lavatory, and a sink, as well as a small structure, a small art sculpture, a large art sculpture, and a briar that is actually alive and not dead. Now, neural vacillators, for those of you who may not know, only have one charge, and there is a way to get more of them, although I've never personally done it in the game, but that's not that big a deal. And because I don't want too much of that cold seeping through just from, oxygen transfer or whatever, or gas transfer, I decided to seal that up with insulation as soon as I possibly could. Again, the chagrin of tiny little individual wire bits here and there. Now, there are a couple things I would like to get for this playthrough that I haven't gotten yet. I have not gotten sleet wheat, and I would love to get sleet wheat because it would provide me with a third source of food and one that does way better. Oh, here I go. I fixed the conductive wires. Told you I would. But at the moment, there is a relatively large-scale shortage of sleet wheat, and I'm hesitant to go out to either side of my base because, well, I don't have any fiber, so I can't create exosuits at the moment. I don't have any plastic, so I can't really do anything like that. And there's liquid chlorine and chlorine gas everywhere. Sending dupes out into that it's a great way to decontaminate them, but it's a bad way to keep them alive if you do it wrong. So yeah, I'm not particularly thrilled about that singular idea. Oh, and here you can see I have started to design my plumbing. Now, the nice thing about this plumbing is since it's pulling straight from the water in the bottom of the base, that water is being heated, which means every time my dupes cycle water up and through, they are all pulling hot water up into their dorms, which in turn heats the base. I think you might be able to see where I'm going with this. But we are reaching about 20-ish minutes, give or take, 15, 20 minutes on the video, so I think I'm going to cut here, skip ahead a little bit, maybe give you guys another jazzy track, and we'll do a recap at the very end. So, see you in a second. And you can see here my grand plan becoming a fruition. There is heat beginning to spread throughout our base, starting from the bottom and rising upwards. Yes, past Jake, your mouse wiggling is shown to be fruitful. I am also in the process of building some temperature shift plates to try and heat up our arbor trees, because damn are they cold. Also, you may have noticed that we are running into an issue with some of our bristle blossoms. They are actually overheating from being just above the body of water that is now way too hot. This is something that I do need to automate at some point. Speaking of thermal automation, you may have noticed that we put a hydroponic farm just to the left of the metal crusher there, or the rock crusher. This farm regulates its own temperature by using that thermal tank, or that tank right below it, and a little liquid shutoff valve attached to a liquid thermometer, essentially. If the thermometer gets below a certain temperature, or is it above? I believe it's above a certain temperature, it does not allow liquid to pass, and so shuts off the valve. When that drops too low, it begins to cycle through again. And this is essentially a way of regulating the farm's temperature using the temperature of the water that's coming from our main reservoir. I think it's a little nifty solution. I'm probably going to employ it in more places. I'm thinking about creating a secondary bristle blossom farm somewhere in the base because of how many dupes that we have at this point, on how much food we do need. We also need more storage, which is what you see me building here. But we do have, at this point, 7 dupes, and I'm going to be getting another 2. I think we're probably going to top out at 9 dupes for this run, at least for a good long while. Maybe somewhere down the line we'll get more dupes in as the base expands to encompass more of the map, but for right now, I think 9 duplicants is more than enough. Also, I am slightly worried about how much water we have been using. Now, I know a lot of that goes towards research, and we are beginning to have a severe endpoint of research. We're getting close to the point where I don't need to research much anymore, so our water usage will fall. But I am still worried about it, nevertheless. So anyway, I think that just about wraps up this episode of Iceland, or No Rime or Reason, depending on how you want to look at things. So I thank you all for joining. Oh, I almost forgot the dark columns in the base. Those are due to wallpaper. It's one of the other mods I have on. I turned a lot of the obsidian that I had laying around into some wallpaper because it's more thermally conductive and will help move the heat from the pipes out into the base a little bit more efficiently. But besides that, I think it is pretty much all done. Something I am thinking about doing is automating that teppidizer down there in the water and maybe setting that to, like, I don't know, 25 degrees Celsius or something. Just keep the base at a nice room temperature. I know room temperature is 21, sue me. But anyway, thank you all for joining. I will catch you again next time. Toodles.